I want to hear all about it.
You got a minute?
Yeah, I do. Let's start where it all began because I know that you started playing music very early, and at the tender age of 17, you actually joined Frankie Valli's Four Seasons. Tell us how that came about.
Well, actually, I was playing after I was going to Manhattan School of Music to be a composition major. And on the weekends, we fortunately, back in the 70s, people still did this, had a 17-piece big band jazz. And my aspiration was to be an arranger and an orchestrator, like, for the big band sound.
Uh-huh.
And so we assembled it, and we were older men and kids all, and we played. We had a Monday night gig at a club, and it turned out that Bob Gaudio from the Four Seasons, the original guy who wrote all the songs, was going to leave the road and leave touring so that he could continue to produce music, which he did. And they needed a replacement, but they figured while they're looking for a replacement for Bob, maybe get someone who can arrange, because Charlie Colello, who is my mentor and a brilliant genius and a dear friend, he was the arranger, but he didn't travel either after he did a little stint. But to do a new song, the guys had to all come back to New York. Couldn't do
Uh-huh.
it on the road. So the road manager came in and saw me and recommended me for an audition, and I got a phone call and I went in. And this is, if you've seen Jersey Boys, some of it is true. And they were $4 million in debt, and they were rehearsing at the Fountain Restaurant in the catering area. And I went into that place, and they were all set up to play. And they gave me music, and Frankie walked in, and I played a chord, Bling, and he sang, "Pretty as a Midsummer Morn." And I stopped, and he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Man, you sound just like the radio." And they all had a real good laugh at my expense, but they gave me the job. I don't
Wow.
think I was shaving every day yet.
At 17, that's unbelievable.
Actually, to correct you, it was 19, but it was still an amazing experience, and I still wasn't shaving every day.
You were you were as green as anything. They really must have seen something in you to trust you.
Well, first of all, everyone in my family is blessed with a bit of a gift of gab. And my dad taught me that you are what you say you are, then you have to carry the ball. But nobody cares how good you are if you don't get the job. So Frankie said to me, it's interesting to bring this up at this point, but Frankie said to me at that very audition, if I wanted to do a new arrangement for the band and I told you about it in the morning of a day, how long would it take you till we could do it? And as I said, I was kind of a outspoken 19-year-old. And I said, "Frankie, if you want to do a new song, tell me in the morning and we'll do it that night." And the very first job, he called me on it in the rental car. And he said, "Lee, tonight we're playing at the Erie Crown Theater in Connecticut. I mean, in Chicago, rather. 3,000 seaters, sold out. And we always traveled. We always had five horns. So it was the Four Seasons, a percussionist, and five horns. And it was kind of that Chicago-y sound that was popular in the day.
Uh-huh.
And he said, "I want like a fanfare and an overture and something, and it comes into a thing." And I'm like, okay. And so I go to the hotel room and I write it. There's no piano, no nothing. I'm just writing out of my head. And I said to Frankie, I said, "I think you're missing an opportunity if you don't mind me starting the show a little different." And they used to start with Dawn when I joined the band. They always started with the song Dawn. And there was a little opening part, like I just sang to you a minute ago. And then it went in with the drums, digga, 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 dum, dum, and it's in. And they started, "Ladies and gentlemen, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, digga, 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 in."
Uh-huh.
And I said, I think you're missing the best part of the song." I said, he says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, my overture that I wrote for you, at the end of it, it comes down, da 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 da." I said, "And from off stage, I'd like you to sing, 'Pretty as a Midsummer Morn. They call her Dawn.' Then digga 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 digga, and you walk out to the drums, bang bang." And we did it, and the people went bananas. And he kept it in for pretty much my whole stay.
Wow.
And so what I'm saying basically is he threw me in the water and I swam, and the rest was my career. And that's
Unbelievable.
really it, you know. So many people don't get thrown in the water. They can swim, but the planets just don't align. So you can't take yourself too seriously when, even if you have the ability and you're got everything going for you, sometimes it's just, you know what I mean? You can't think it's all you. It's not all you. It's your situation, other people who remember you, how you impacted someone 5 years ago.
Yep.
And you know, do you have time for me to tell you another story?
Absolutely. Please. Love it.
When I was 11 years old, and we tell this, or we did tell this in the Hitmen, uh, as reflecting back on my career with the Four Seasons. And this is an absolutely true story, my hand to God. I'm 11 years old. It's 1964. And I'm watching black and white television with my mother. And Ed Sullivan comes on, and it's the Four Seasons. And Gaudio is there, and he's playing a grand piano. And the guys are standing around him and singing. And I say to my mother, because it's all about the Beatles and everything else, and I love the Beatles, but I said, look, this band has a piano player, and I'm taking lessons, and maybe someday I could do that. I never thought about it again. Never thought about it. I was into jazz. I liked big band. I didn't rock and roll yet. I liked the Beatles, but I liked the Doors and Frank Zappa, all weird stuff. But 8 years later, I replaced that guy in that group and became one of the Four Seasons.
How do you account
So
for that?
you
The
don't.
universe.
Thank you. And you know what?
Amazing.
It's like my personal beliefs. When people ask me what I believe, what my faith is, I say I don't know, and they say, "What do you mean you don't know?" I said, "No, I know. The name of it is I don't know, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't need a story to validate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you know if
Yeah.
it's going
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
rain tomorrow? You don't know.
No, some things we certainly do not know.
Just
Good.
accept it.
Um, Lee, you were
Yes,
you, so
I'm
you
here.
so Lee Shapiro, you ended up playing piano. Well, you didn't end up. You started off playing piano and arranging for Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. How many years did you do that for?
I did that from 73 to 81. And then in 81,
Hang on, before you get to 81, I mean, you were responsible for many of their biggest hits, right?
responsible is a big word. I was a collaborator. I was proud to be a part of. There's no discounting Bob Gaudio's, not only his genius pop ear, knowing what will hook with the public, not only that,
Uh-huh.
but also his tenacity of doing stuff that I thought was stupid and doing it anyway. And some of the stupid stuff was stupid, and some of it sold around the world. And if you're not willing to swing the bat, then you can't get in the game. And I always admired him for that. So the fact that I was the arranger and the orchestrator on these big hits, Who Love You and What a Night and all that, I'm thrilled to have been a part of it. But I was so young that it was just like what I was doing. Like, you know, they didn't become a hit because I was on them. And then all kinds of business took place, and they got released, and someone promoted them correctly, and boom, they were the right thing.
So
You know,
which ones did you think were stupid that really went gangbusters?
none of them. The ones I thought were stupid didn't go. No, honestly, I wasn't a big fan of Who Loves You, only because uh, the things that the things that I was judging it on, I learned later on, weren't the things that it was made for. So, for instance, the chord structure of it is pretty much like Sherry. You know, da 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 da. Who loves you, pretty baby? Da, 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 Sherry. It's the same chord structure.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, come on, man. That's how I felt about it. I was like 20. And now it's like, yeah, so what? A hit's a hit. What are you dissecting it for? If it sounds like it. And then Frankie said, Lee, remember this. He says, if it feels good, it's good. That's a way of saying don't go past it.
So you were overthinking it at the time?
I believe so, but I think it was out of naivety. I think it was out of what I thought was important musically, as opposed to, and my world was, you know, Glen Rock, New Jersey, and Manhattan School of Music. And yet, because I was maybe overconfident is why I got the job. But the best thing happened to me when I went to the session in 74 See that? I didn't go that far ahead. And Frankie told me to go to the session, and it was here's who's in the room.
Yeah.
Me at age 21, Bob Crew, Charlie Colello, right? Frankie Valli, and all of New York's biggest top horn section.
Uh-huh.
And they're doing My Eyes Adored You, and it's all done except for the horns. And we're in the biggest studio. I mean, it was like I had to pinch myself just to find myself standing there in this workplace, this place where hits were made. And I'm listening on the huge speakers, and all of a sudden, Bob Crew, who has left us, but what a unique genius, unique, didn't play an instrument and produced a billion hits. And he yells out, and he was known for being flamboyant, and he, as is depicted in Jersey Boys, he yells out, "Stop, stop. Someone rewind, someone write this down." Well, I was the only guy that was schooled. So I'm the only guy that could notate. And I had my pad with me. And so he ran the tape back then, the tape. Everything is back then. I can't
Of
believe
course.
it. But in
It's
any
gone
case,
fast, hasn't it?
right, so they're playing the chorus. My eyes adored you. And Bob Crew starts to sing da 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 da. Just write it down, and I'm writing it down, and it's on a little scrap of paper. He says, run it out to Charlie, because Charlie, of course, could notate, but he was in the other room conducting.
Uh-huh.
So I ran into the performance room with my little piece of paper. I can see myself there now. And Charlie handed it to each of the five guys, and they each whispered to each other. And one guy got out his clarinet, and they came into the room, and they started the chorus, and they played exactly what Crew sang to me and what I wrote and what Charlie orchestrated. And if you listen to My Eyes Adored You, in the horn section, they're playing the old song, Baubles, Bangles, and Beads.
Really?
Baubles, bangles, oh, how it ring-ling-a-lingles. The horns are playing. And that was Crew's idea because the song is nostalgic. So he brought it back another generation, not just 60s, and we were, but he brought it back to it just had a sense of it, would pull at your heart, I mean, here you are listening to Miles Giorgio in 74, which then for us it was a contemporary record. Uh-huh. And all of a sudden creeps up the big band sound. It was so old that it was new, and then ultimately became the genre for horns in disco, like Swearing to God and all that stuff. It's just, and at the time it's all just happening. And in retrospect, you could almost plot it with pins. You could almost make a little map out of the evolution of everything, because you're looking back on it.
What would have you done differently, reflecting on those days now, and with the value of hindsight, or with the wisdom of hindsight? What would you have changed?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I didn't get a chance to do it wrong, and there was one reason. The very session I'm talking about with Charlie Colello, and we're recording, this is another part of the date. I think it was a different song on the album. And I went to everything, by the way. I didn't care if they were sweeping the floor. If I got to go in the studio, I went. And I had a suggestion. They were running the song, and I had a suggestion. And I blurted it out. And I felt pretty good about it. And Charlie takes me over, and he takes me by the arm, and he walks me into the corner. He was a shorter man. And he said, Lee, you know what you should do really, really right about now? I said, what's that? He said, you should shut your mouth and sit over there and listen. And I did. And it stung at the time. But today, Charlie's 83. I'm 68. We've been friends since then. And he was right, because to quote Larry King, I've never learned a thing while I was talking. But see, some people that they get shut down because of that. Oh, he talked to me that way. No.
Walk away. Yeah.
He was the guru. He wasn't a kind guru, but he was the guru, and we ended up being very close to this day. And frankly, my music emulates Charlie because I just think he's the best there is.
And did you follow his advice?
Yes, I did. Since then, if I go to a session, even now, and it's not my session and I'm just visiting, or I'm not performing and I'm just seeing someone there, I sit in the corner until someone talks to me, because that's what I learned is I mean, look, unless you're Keith Richards and you come walking in, you know, but if short of that, I don't care. I know Barry Manilow. I work with him too. If he walked into someone else's session, he would sit down quietly in the corner and just wait to be acknowledged, because that's what professional recording acumen is. You don't walk in and then break whatever is going on that you're not aware of.
Right.
There may be magic happening that you just walked in on.
Interfered with, yeah.
You know, and you don't want to. We don't know what makes it. How come this guy writes a song and it sells 10 million pieces, and I write a song and it sells, you know, my sister bought it, but there's no, and people, you play it for the same people. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. Like with Frankie Valli, people love the big hits. People love the ones that weren't big hits. You know, it's very interesting as to what makes it be commercially successful beyond heavy promotion, but some things just strike a nerve. They just
Yeah.
do.
That's another one that it's, I don't know is the answer, isn't it?
Is the what? I'm sorry.
That's another one where I don't know is the answer.
Without any question. Without any question. And frankly, you can revel in I don't know. There's no limitations that I don't know. You cannot know anything, because we honestly don't. But you can actually get real comfortable with it, because it's almost like in a way it's like an escape clause, but you don't escape. You escape into reality. The truth is, we don't know where we were born. We don't know where we are in the universe now. We don't know where we go when we die. So and that comes from Wayne Dyer. It doesn't leave a lot to worry about. So, you know, enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm old now, so I know. Enjoy the ride. I'm not talking like maybe.
Yeah.
Enjoy the
Yeah.
ride.
And I think your advice earlier with not don't take yourself too seriously is also very apt. Like we all need to remember that. So you were with them for 7 years, and you left. Why did you leave them?
Two reasons. One, I felt, and I unfortunately was right, but short of Jersey Boys, but I felt that the Grease is the word, which was Frankie's solo record in '78. I really felt that with the advent of the Police and Devo and Oingo Boingo and those kind of groups, that the recording success for Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons was over. And not that that matters, because he's always performed, and he's performing now at 87 years old. But for me, as a young man, my dream was to be a producer in the studio. And it was difficult to leave something that successful. And I had just met my wife through being one of the Four Seasons, and we just celebrated our 44th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
a
you. Go
great
figure that.
feat.
We're
Amazing.
statistics. We're
How did
statistics.
yeah, totally. How did you meet her being part of the Four Seasons? There's a story there.
She was the personnel director at an outdoor concert facility in the North Carolina, and we would play there. And very pretty. And every year I would ask her out. I was 21, she was 18, then 22 and 19, then 23 and 20. And she
Brilliant.
wouldn't. I actually called her from Paris and said I would fly her there, and she wouldn't go. And finally, when I was 24 and she was 21, I got a little note. I had broken up with my boyfriend. If you'd like to have a coffee,
Right. And the
and
rest is history.
never went back.
Oh,
Never
how
went
nice.
back. Just imagine. I'm very blessed. I truly am very blessed. But honestly, as you were saying before, the best thing that you can do is have real big ears. Just try to resist the urge. What do they say? It's better to be interested than interesting. And I say these things to remind myself as well. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like a mantra. You
Yeah.
you you want to absorb what there is here in this existence. You know,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah, I don't want to miss any of it.
Yeah. Oh, you're very wise. So, if you thought that Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons time was up, music was changing in the 80s, you wanted to be part of the new action?
I did, and I produced music, and I ended up going into the media area where I was writing music and producing music for TV commercials and for network themes for golf and baseball or whatever else, and not performing. And even though I wasn't making hit records at the time, I played on some, but the rep music I was making was for the media and for the ad agencies. I was still in the studio. I was still doing what I loved rather than traveling and perform. It was just my own preference. I liked
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And being a newly wedded man,
You wanted to stay home with your
go.
wife.
I wanted to go home.
Yeah, I
So
understand that. So,
you know,
which name a couple of the hits that you played on during that time?
oh, gee whiz, Native New Yorker for Odyssey, and also I was on the album that had Buster Poindexter, Hot, 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 because my friend Sandy Linzer, who wrote Let's Hang On, Working My Way Back to You, he produced those records, and I'm friendly with him to this day.
Right, right.
And he was
So,
written, he's written everything. It's written unbelievable. Him and Gaudio have written whatever there is in the world.
okay. So, music changed in the 80s, not necessarily for the better. Would you agree?
No, but I wouldn't disagree either. I would say that it changed for other ears. Like, for instance, today, with all of the looping and sampling, and I love it. I love the electronic music. I don't think it's composing. I think that it's more of, if I can make my own phrase, audio assemblage. And that's like the difference between painting and collage. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Painting is your own stroke. Collage can be ripping off pieces of a magazine and it's one art and one not. I just like the painting one better because I just do. But that doesn't mean I can certainly appreciate what it takes to be. I'm not an Eminem fan, but I was an Avicii fan, and I'm definitely a Bruno Mars fan and a Mark Ronson fan who produces those records. And they're magical, and they're just pristine. But I also favor live music because it's what my childhood was.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, the 80s was a very interesting decade for you because you did all of this commercial stuff, and then and then you moved into musicals. How did that happen?
Well, I worked with Barry Manilow on something quite by chance. I'm getting another call from Ireland. I
Oh,
can't
you're
believe.
very popular in Ireland.
I don't. And what's interesting is I truly don't know anybody in Ireland. So, in any case,
You're back.
um, here I am. So the musical thing actually happened because while I was doing jingles, this is a very odd story, but I uh, I knew who Barry Manilow's people were. I didn't meet Barry, other than having him follow us into
Is
Vegas
that
once.
a police or an ambulance going past?
They're coming to get me. Heard my
I remember
story.
that song.
Yeah, right. So you could never release that song today.
No.
Politically incorrect. But in any case, Barry called me to do some demos on my equipment in my studio. I'm so sorry about
No, no, we might just hold until it passes though, because
the bank job that's going in the background. But he called me to do some demos, and I did them. And my studio was in another person's facility. I had a room,
yeah.
and he came in and we did it, and it was very successful. It was good. So a year or so goes by, and we moved, my wife and I, and I was doing nicely with my TV work. And my wife said to me, "Why don't you call Barry Manilow?" And I said to her, "Come on, for God, I did one demo with the man, and I'd have to call his management, and I'm not going to call him. It's Barry. So she said, "Why don't you write him a letter?" And I said, "Why do you want me to do this? I don't have to make this stuff up. This is for real." She said, "I had a dream with Barry Manilow in it." I said, "You're kidding me, right?" And she said, "No. My wife is 1/4 Cherokee Indian, for what it's worth, so I don't doubt anything." And I said,
Yeah,
"I'll write the letter."
intuition.
I wrote the letter. I went out to dinner with my wife, and we had a babysitter for my daughter, who's 37, who was then 7. And when we came back, the babysitter was like white-faced and said, "Talk to your daughter about the phone call." And I said, "What about the phone call, Ariel?" And she said, You had a phone call, Daddy. I said, who was it? She says, Barry Manilow. I said, you got to be kidding. I called back. It was Barry. And we ended up doing Copacabana the musical together and co-produced the music for
Amazing.
like two months with Barry. I couldn't, it was magnificent. And I will tell you that Barry Manilow can do everybody's job. He can sing lead, he can play piano, he can orchestrate, he can produce, he can, there's no, seriously, and it's not that I'm such a big Barry Manilow fan, I respect
No,
him.
but I never knew he was that talented.
No, it's unbelievable. Well, first of all, he, as most people know, he was Bette Midler's musical director before he became Barry Manilow. And before that, he wrote jingles that are still on the air.
Really?
Are you familiar with the State Farm commercial?
No.
Do you have that there? Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. He wrote that. That's been running for 60 years.
Wow,
It's
really?
unbelievable. I mean, if Barry did nothing else but write, you know, Copacabana, if that's all he ever did, he'd have multi-billions of
He
dollars.
could have retired on that. Wow.
Yeah, and when I worked with him, I believe he was in his 40s, and now he's pushing 80. And man, you know, he has it. He's still him. He's got Vegas. He's got the Barry Manilow room that used to be the Elvis room at the Hilton. And God bless all these people who turn. You know, I'm friendly with a man named Larry Brown who wrote "Tie a Yellow Ribbon" with Erwin Levine.
Yeah.
And he said, Lee, our job as creators, our job as songwriters is very, very simple. I said, what's that? He says, we are to take nothing and turn it into something that the whole world will buy. That's what
Very
we do for
simple.
that's what we do for a living. And when I have success, people say to me, I'm an orthodontist, I'm standing on my feet all day, and you come up with a ditty and have a hit. And I say to them, there's nothing to it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go
Well,
ahead, do it.
but I mean, you're very gifted to be able to do that, and I know how much you appreciate that gift that whoever it was gave you, because most of us can't do what you've done, and you've managed to reinvent yourself. Every decade there was a new reinvention. So after you worked with Barry Manilow on Copacabana the musical, then you diversified again, and Mattel Fisher Price had you to
Can I
thank.
say something to you? Can I say something to you?
Yeah.
You are the most prepared interviewer I've ever worked with in 50 years.
No way.
You are so on. You can cut that out if you want, if this is
Oh,
recorded.
you're so
In any case,
sweet.
but
Thank you.
I'm telling you, just so, I mean, I feel like with Lee Shapiro, this is your life. You just got me by the hand and you're
Well, if
walking
I'm
me
talking,
through it.
well, that's what my job is. But
It's one.
thank you for telling me that. I
Well,
appreciate it.
I found myself after Barry doing commercials, and one of my major clients was toy commercials for Fisher Price at the time. And I had a partner, and we were doing these. And I looked at him one day and I said, do you think this toy is fun? And he said, no. I said, well, what's fun? And he said, rock and roll. I said, well, you know, there's never been rock and roll in a toy because it's always been looked down upon. You know, if you think about it in the 60s, you'd never have rock and roll. There'd never be an Elvis toy. It was too
No, no.
racy, you know, shaking hips and jiggling. We don't do that. But all the way through, this is the 90s. And I said to him, I don't think it's ever been done where rock and roll is in a toy. So we got an Elmo and we took the mechanism from the shaky Halloween witch that cackles every year. And we took that out and I cut the speaker wires and we stuck it into an Elmo. And my wife designed a LeMay costume with sunglasses and we glued a plastic guitar on him and we wrote music and we hit a button and he came to life and we said, let's take this to Fisher Price because we were working for him anyway.
Right.
And we went and showed it to the vice president of marketing and he broke out into a smile and we knew. Now, this was 97. It didn't come out till 99. There were 2 years for it to screw up. 2 years where there's something else better could have come in. 2 years where we're like walking on eggshells. And it came out and it sold 4 million units worldwide. It was unbelievable. The prototype cost us $60.
I mean, music seems to have come kind of full circle again because now you've put a band together called the Hitmen, which recreates all of those early days. You've got a whole lot of rock's greatest people that are part of the Hitmen. What led to that coming? Now that's a
Well,
terrible question. What led to that? That's formation. What led to that being started?
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what led to that, Gizmo. Um, Honestly, I was enjoying the success of Elmo for a good 10 years, and inventing more toys. And I had some releases, but nothing as big. And people all that while were always asking me, "How come you don't go back on the road? How come you don't perform?" Well, Jersey Boys came out, and it was like the Tony Award winner, and this is like in 2009,
Yeah.
I believe 2009. And Don Ciccone, the late Don Ciccone, who I miss, called me and said, "Why don't we put a band together and be like, because Jersey Boys are so big and we're really the guys from the 70s." So I said, "I don't know." So I called Pulci, who sang "Oh What a Night." I said, "Would you think about it?" He said, "Yeah, I'd think about it." I said, it wouldn't mean much unless there was Jersey Boys, but there is Jersey Boys. So anyway, I went to a recording session with Frankie because he was recording something, and I think his last album. And I said to him, "What do you think of this? There's all kinds of Midtown Men and Under the Lamp and Four Lovers and $4, whatever." I said, "We don't want to do that. We're really the guys. What do you think if we go out as a group and we would be doing your songs, but and this is what the man said to me. He said, "Lee, we limit." This is back then. He said, "We limit what the Midtown Men and Under the Street Lamp and all those. We limit what they can do because it will detract from the show. If they're doing, because they used to be in the show, then they take their roles and put them outside.
Yeah.
It's a distraction."
Yeah.
He said, "But you guys are the real Four Seasons from the '70s, so go out and do whatever you want."